All right, everybody, welcome to the Incredible I Show. I am super happy to have a couple of really fun guys from the UK on the show with me today. I have Steve Bradshaw returning as my guest host today. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Always lovely to be back. You tried to keep me out, but I keep clawing my way back in.
Yes, right. All right. Excellent to have you here today. Thank you so much. And we have Mike Ryan with Essist joining us today. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what we've got to say over here. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for being here. All right, Mike, what we usually do is we start out with talking a little bit about you, how you landed on the eye, just maybe a brief history of you. So, tell our listeners a little bit about Mike.
Yeah. Okay, it's not a great story, but I've been working in this sector now, what used to be loosely called IBM mid-range, since 1977, starting on System 32s. I know you don't know what one of those is, but starting way back on System 32, and working up, starting as a trainee programmer, and soon got into just wanting to know more and wanted to do more with software in general, and gradually built up a bit of an early career in systems and data management. I finished my programming years really in about 1985, and that was mainly RPG. So these new languages are a bit tougher for me to just get on. One, because of the gap, and two, because they're rather different. And I've grown really looking for how to exploit what the IBM I can do, even through all of its generations, all its names. If you cut me across the throat, I'd look down, it would say AS400, but the truth is that I'm an IBM I guy through and through, really. I think I've got a flair for seeing where products that that can fit together, where we can leverage one against another, and it's what I do enjoy doing, really. Always looking for the new. And I think I've been helped so much by so many people in the past. I want to help back out. So it's like being volunteering to be a scoutmaster. So, but for me, that would be the I user group. You probably know a little about. It started way back and has grown, and you may not know, now there is a group of 4 of us who run it, and Steve Bradshaw is one of those on that group. I'm very fortunate to have him. And throughout all of that, we've wanted to give back to the I community, and you've got to do it altruistically, and nobody's given us any money for it. It's just what we want to do and what we get something out of, even though it's getting more of a burden to try and do these things. But we've always wanted, for the past 12 years, we've been working hard to try and link academia to our commercial knowledge, their fresh young ideas against our great knowledge and the capabilities, and the IBM I capabilities, getting that over to them. But it's been difficult, of old, showing a 5250 screen to a youngster and they just go DOS. Or whatever. IBM has done incredible work in the background, just incredible, with all the open source, even the decision to go down that line, and it's perplexed us. But that is what's made everything happen, and has moved me towards the dark side, the open source.
I like that, the dark side. Sounds fun.
And you know what? I've fallen into it and sold my soul to it to some extent, and it's where we are now. So that's a potted history of where I got to here.
Yeah, excellent. So,
And
Mike,
I think, if you don't mind, it's just worth me pointing out for our American listeners, and Mike, we have a lot more people stateside than our side of the pond listening to this, that when we say the IUG, we're talking about the I user group, as Mike says, but that is common here in the UK. We decided to take a name that was more modern when Mike took the old common brand, if you like, and decided to refresh it and drive it forward. And at some point, Mike, I'd like to talk a bit about the success you've had with Common here in the UK. But so whenever you hear IUG, just think Common UK. It is an independent user group. It's not part of Common US, but it's very much affiliated with it, and we share a lot with it.
Yeah, well, it is, and I'll quite happily ring the bells about IUG. But we'll concentrate on the Node-RED for now, and then let's see how far we get. But that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, so you're an instructor as well, is that correct?
Well,
are you?
I do instruct.
Yes.
I do educate.
Yes.
Right in
Talk about
this,
that.
as we, that's not really part of my background. It's just something which, again, I think I naturally do okay. That's not a driving force in me, but that's helped a lot as I start talking to the students and start talking to the universities, that it's helped us develop the education program. But it's by no means a kind of something I'd turn around and say is a big skill of mine.
Well, okay, let me just turn that on its head slightly, because that question is very poignant. But so, all right, forget that you say that you're not a professional educator. Well, yeah, bah, humbug, right? You speak at so many conferences. I think that's not quite true. But more importantly, I think when it comes to Node-RED, and we'll get to what Node-RED is in just a moment, but why did you feel the need to create a training course for Node-RED in the first place?
Well, okay. So we're trying to bring together the academia and our commercial interests, not least of which we do need new blood into just our industry. Trying to build the hook for it has been difficult, and at some point in this, we'll tumble along about a chance meeting. In fact, Steve introduced me to Herb Daly, a senior lecturer at one of the universities, who gave me the term skateboard. You understand a skateboard, so there you'll be the kids will get onto the skateboard, fall off, graze their knuckles, hurt their knee, but they keep getting back on because they're determined to make it work. It's a fun thing. Open source started to open those doors. Node-RED was my epiphany, if you like, where we turned around and thought, well, this now could do it. So how do we get students to come from where they are, and I know they'll have a crack at anything, but follow a proper path so that we'll use that hook to get them in. But then before they know it, they're playing, but by using rules within the database, by updating a database, by having to put small bits of code in to try and get something to work just because they want to get it to work and they want to see that temperature being shown on a gauge on their terminal. These are the things that Node-RED gives us in abundance, a real powerful tool to do that. What we had to do was fill in the blanks in the middle. So therefore, I felt the only way was to go and create a step-by-step course that started off with real fun, and before you know it, you're actually updating DB2 on an IBM high power server in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Manchester. You're playing with enterprise systems, and as we chat more, you'll see I think that has worked. But that was the need. I just felt it had to be done because this has got to work, and I will say that more than once. This has got to work now.
So I love that skateboard analogy. So basically what you're saying is if the kids find something's interesting, doesn't matter how many times that they run into a wall, or in your case, fall off in the analogy and graze their knuckles, they'll just carry on learning it because it's the joy of the journey that's the point rather than actually the journey itself.
Yeah. And that was the hope. That was the hope. And as you'll know, we talked earlier, that was the hope. But that's actually being realized now. We're running this. It's actually live in a university. They're 3/4 of the way through the course. And they are saying pretty much that, I don't know, I've got to get it working.
That's hilarious. So they don't think that using development tools like SEU, PDM, SDA or RLU, they don't think that's fun then for some reason.
The strange thing is when you give them 4,000 lines of code and say there's something wrong in the middle of that, they'll say, I'll leave that till next week. But if you say, do you want to switch that light on? Would you like to switch that light on in Manchester? Now, oh yes, I'd like to do that.
Yeah. All right, so we need to tell our good listeners what Node-RED is and fundamentally how it's different, just at a high level compared to trying to code in traditional or even very modern RPG using the latest VS Code standards. What is it about Node-RED? Well, first of all, what is Node-RED? And then perhaps the secondary, why is that different? Why
Yeah,
does that make it more
yeah,
fun?
yeah, and that's cool, and that's right. First of all, you, you may not know, it was originally written by IBM, not for the IBM not for Power Systems. It was written by IBM, and I've got to say, whoever wrote it did a really good job at getting that visual interface, slick, easy to use, and attractive. But it's basically it was written to connect hardware devices, APIs, services, basically to serve the IoT, the Internet of Things market. And it's built.
And isn't it a relatively young product as well? I think 2013.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So whilst everyone's wanted to play with the IoT, this is something that's trying to help simplify it. And again, whoever thought behind it, you thought, what, we need to do some of the heavy lifting here. So it's built on nodes, and you'll see a little in a while, but each node is built on Node.js, and it's in JavaScript. But it does the heavy lifting. So if I wanted to read the DB2 database on an IBM I, then I'll use the DB2 for I node. And that does all the background of figuring out what the database, where it is, opening it, giving you the access to it, making sure that you've got the right logons and sign-ons. It does all of that. And then says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to get some records out of that table, please. It's okay, bang me an SQL and I'll give them to you. And it duly delivers them back in JSON format. And so all that work you would have had to do to get onto the IBM and get the information, that's all done. It says, yeah, don't worry about it. Just give me what you want now. I want to run this program. Okay, just send it over to me and we'll run that program for you. One of the things that does is really takes a lot of risk out of your development, because that bit works. You're just looking at your SQL statement to see where you screwed up there, really. You're not worried about whether it's going to open the database correctly and bring you the data back safely. It's fast to scale, very quick to market. And as you look at it, the flows, all little boxes joined together, they form their own documentation. Laymen can have a look at it and see, I see what you're doing. And that's borne out as well. And the big secret about it is that lots of people have seen this around. And then some people say, I've seen that. It's a Windows product. Well, it does run on Windows. I've seen that. It's a Linux. You got to know that. Yeah, well, it does run on Linux, on Mac. But the big secret that they've been keeping is it runs on IBM I. Not next to IBM I, not alongside, not with it, on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's inside the fortress.
So would a customer, if they're interested in downloading or getting Node-RED onto their IBM I, is that just can they use Yum to download that and get it onto the I?
Well, the simple answer to that is yes, of course they can. Although they'll probably use Yum and NPM, but they don't even need to do that. They just go to the ACS. Down at the bottom, it says open source. Click on that. It says, these are the ones you've got on at the moment. These are the ones you can have. Oh, could I have Node-RED, please? Yes, give me 5 minutes. There you are. It's done. And what that does also is, like Yum does, it seeks out all the dependencies. So if there are dependencies required in order to route that, it downloads those all along with it.
Wow.
And every now and then you can say, can you just check for updates? Yeah, here's an update. Can I load it? Yes, please load it. So IBM really, you used to have to use PTS for this. It is so simple that it starts getting scary. You think it can't work because it's that straightforward. So if you wanted to do this on your IBM I, you could have it loaded within minutes. There are some things I'll get onto that you probably need to keep in mind. But yeah, you could have this running more in minutes than in hours.
And can I stress something at this point? Because there's been a lot of stuff in the news recently about, oh dear, it's open source and someone has poisoned the source and it's not from a trusted place. And how do you know where to get your executables from? And do you have to compile everything from scratch? Well, what Mike's just talked about there about using ACS to load it is it goes and gets it from an IBM repository. IBM has pre-vetted that code, make sure that A, it's clean, compatible, reliable, but also that it's from a trusted source. They built it. So, Peg, I know you've had Jesse Kaczynski on here before now. Okay, this is part of his team. And so, the IBMI listeners out there who are thinking, oh, I can't trust open source. Guess what? If you're trusting IBM to deliver PTFs, then you can trust them to do this. And God forbid that they find a problem, whether it's a functional one or some sort of bug in a dependency, as Mike's just said, you just click on it and click update, and guess what? It updates it.
Well, it feels like this is just this hidden secret, why am I just hearing about this now?
Well,
Is it
it's
just
almost like IBM is not very good at marketing. I mean, who'd have thunk it?
Oh, well.
maybe?
Well, I go on. I'll answer that one really directly, because how long have you known that IBM have been using or building open source, working in the open source, in fact, taking a lead in the open source market and actually delivering that, and you can have it on IBM? How long have you known? And how much of it have you used? And you'll suffer from the same as everybody, including me. It's, what is this stuff? Where is it running? What is it doing? How on earth could it? And you've got to get over that hurdle. Once you do, the world opens. You've switched to the dark side and you realize it's not quite as dark as you thought. But there is a little hurdle to get over for guys like us. I'm RPG through and through, and IBMI, and this just seemed alien. And it is a little, in a way. You're running in the pace environment. But once opened and you realize you've just got access to everything, it makes it easier. It is something which we're working on as a group, IUG as a group, with our members to try and get them over that hurdle.
So I think you answered my next question. Does this mean that you weren't an open source guru before you started learning about Node-RED?
Well, I have to say, not only was I not then, I'm not now either. At a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably 2, maybe 3. The students will overtake me. My own son is starting to overtake me. He doesn't come from that kind of a background. And the reason is, well, first of all, doesn't that not show that that's the proof in the pudding? I am not a guru on this, but I make this work. And I've made some pretty exciting stuff work, and I'm very, very pleased with it. But I've got my baggage. The students don't have this baggage. They just look at it, go, oh, how, what do I press? Where do I move? And they don't think about the old way of doing things. It's all object oriented and just seems straightforward to them.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, or maybe I thought I heard this, VS Code. So do you need to have? I mean, it's not a green screen, right? It's going to be in RDI or it's going to be in VS Code. Is that correct? You need to have one of those IDEs to use this product?
I've not used that at all in the whole course. In my early education into open source, I started using it, and of course I do, and I don't mind using Python. I use everything's got a silly name in the open source world, so I'm using Phony when I'm doing it onto a Raspberry Pi or a Pi Pico, but on the developing this and all the way through the course, not a single code environment has that's been entered. They open the node, and all the fluff around the side is hidden. They can't say anything. So just, what do you want to do? If you want me to do this job, just give me this, this, and this. And if you put those in correctly, then the rest will move on. Sure, you then get to, well, I don't want to do that if A, but not if B. So you have got a little if then else, and you'll start doing that, and you'll carry a variable because sometimes it loses its message, but very little code.
I think this brings to the point of the problem with this being primarily an audio podcast. Yeah, people are still imagining you writing lines of code and calling nodes, because that's, as you say, we're old school, a lot of us. Okay, I'm sure there's plenty of young people listening, but even people who code in VS Code are used to having some sort of command line. Let's type some code in there. So perhaps you could just describe what Node presents like once you've loaded Node.js and you start it. what is it that you actually call up? So how do you access it? And then what does it look like? Just at a high level.
You mean Node-RED,
Yeah,
not
Node-RED.
okay. Okay.
So what does Node-RED look like? Sorry if I misspoke there, but what is
Yeah, that's
once
okay.
you've loaded Node-RED on there, and
Okay, so audibly, I will go to something like Microsoft Terminal or PuTTY or command line, and we'll kick off Node-RED by what is it? Well, I've got to log on to the IBMI because remember, I'm not running this anywhere else. I am going to be on the IBMI. So the first thing I've got to do is open a secure shell and log on to the IBMI. And that's just like everything else. I am not going anywhere unless I pass that first test. End of story. So once I've opened, I've then got to say, right, node-red. That's it. And a whole lot of terminal stuff comes up and says, yep, this is the port that you have been designated. This is all, when you learn this, it's not getting Node-RED downloaded, Node-RED started. It's understanding the equivalent of the user profile, the equivalent of a library list. So these we've put in a little profile somewhere. So student number 1 goes to 18801 as a port. Student number 7, 18807. But it doesn't matter, but they're going to different ports. So that's it. It'll say, we are now broadcasting on this URL and this port. You then open your browser. That's it. You open your browser pointed at that, and what appears is a grid, and effectively you populate it with little boxes with lines. It just looks like a flowchart, but inside each one of those is a bit of magic that does a particular task. I open, I close. I do a switch. If I do an if then else, I'm a little form. Go to the other URL and key in the order number, and I will show it you on a table. Those kind of things. So it's very, very visual.
okay, let me just rewind and unpick that because it still sounds too good to be true. And I know it is, Mike, but let's just go a little slower. So what you're saying is that you launch this Node-RED, and you can do that from a terminal, or I suppose there's a terminal built. If you're really wed to the 5250, you could open QShell or QP terminal. You could launch it there if you really, really wanted to. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So you've launched something. Okay, so we started a process. A bit like you might start a web server instance or any other RPG or a COBOL application. And then once you've done that, it assigns you a unique port, which you can override or configure. So you then open the browser on any workstation now, put in the address or the name of your server with a colon, and then this port number that it's assigned you. In your example, I think it was 18801, but one of those 64,000 ports that you get.
Yeah.
And then the browser somehow draws a magical graphical environment that you start to design with your application.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what I have to say, Peg, when I first saw this, Mike showed me a simple node, and what I saw was a flowchart that described the application that I thought he had written. Okay, so what I saw was a flowchart that described the application that I thought he'd written. He said, no, that is the application. You draw it in a flowchart, and then it runs. And still felt like magic at that point.
Amazing.
So perhaps you could explain how you get a node and the different kinds of node you might get, Mike.
Do we want to go to, I know it is a podcast, but we talked about maybe having some video associated with this. So would this be a good opportunity to have you show your screen, Mike? And for those of you who are listening, we'll have a link to this part of the recording. I think Steve's going to host it on his website for all of our listeners. So
and you may well be able to describe it better than I'm describing it, really.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Just for now, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
For the benefit of the tape, my lord, we can see what looks like a flow chart.
Yeah, it looks like a graph. Piece of graph paper. Right. But I want to just also mention too, because Mike, you mentioned this earlier, that it runs on Windows, it runs on Linux. So if if you are an IBM I shop and you want to check this out before putting it on your IBM I, you could load it to your laptop and play with it. That's a correct statement, correct?
Well,
Right?
that is true. But then be my guest, go there and build yourself an SQL database somewhere, figure out where that's going to sit, what server, how you're going to link those two together. I want to look at the data on my ERP system on my I. Okay, well, figure out some ODBC connection that we might want to come into, or just run it on the I.
Well, I guess I was just thinking for some folks who are a little worried about, loading up open source on their IBM I or just, checking it out. It's an opportunity to, check it out before they actually load it up on their IBM I.
I can see why you'd say that, Peg. Honestly, the point that Mike is making is that if you use ACS to load this, honestly, within just a few minutes, and I mean a small number of minutes, significantly less than 10, you'll have a working environment. Because IBM I has everything you need, including the security. And all you're loading is an executable. And so any sort of environment you would have that you would feel comfortable in trying a tool, you could. If you were to try and do this on any of the other platforms, whether they're Linux, Windows, AIX, mainframe, you would have an hour or two's worth of work to build the environment. So it is incredibly flexible, but guess where the easiest place in the world to deploy it is? It's on I. Now, if you didn't want to use your I and you don't have a development environment, then things like Pub 400 or the common system that Larry hosts for the guys in the US, or the IUG system that we host for the UK. So for those people watching the video, you'll actually see that this is not a server in front of Mike. He's accessing it through the internet through one of the IUG servers.
Oh, nice. Very good. Yes, folks, you'll have to check out the video. So continue.
So this is Node-RED. These are a whole raft of different things. I want to put a delay in. Fine. I want to put a trigger in. Only when this happens, then go to the next step. Exec, I want to run an IBM command or a command. Splitting, joining, sorting, batching. Yeah. So here we are in lesson number 1. And here we're just going to do Boolean on an inject. It says, what do you want? Oh, please send true. So we'll send true. And they go, on my careful planning, and I've lost it. And that is a light in Manchester that's been sent from an IBM server in Wolverhampton. And I can switch it off. Of course, that's going to happen, isn't it? I didn't set myself up properly. Yeah, so switch it on, switch it off. This is a UI that's behind it, and I can say, well, I'll switch it on, and let's make it a little bit dimmer, so maybe a little bit brighter. This is all the stuff. I didn't write this code. I just said, I'd like a slider. This is the device I want you to send it to, and I want to send you, and in that case, I don't know, it's about less than 3, that I think. But anyway, it's a little further down the line. Yeah, and then we just get a bit more complex here. I'll take this control toggle. This says flick it. Yes, if it's on, take it off. If it's off, take it on. Here's a gate that's open. You see it go open, and now I'll say right, start. So now the colors down here will just change on a random basis because I've got a random thing there. I said, can you make it between 1 and 310? Because that's what this device wants. And it'll just keep sending it until I tell it to stop. I'll shut the gate so it'll stay as it is. But by the way, I can still send it a off and still send it an on. Yeah.
So can I just summarize what it is that you've done conceptually for those people who are not watching the video right now? So Mike's got a typical IBM I application, which he's written in now, Node-RED. So we're going to say Node-RED is normal. So it's a typical IBM I application. And he has that running on one server. Let's forget where that is. And he has in a different location an Internet of Thing device, which in this case is some rather cool disco lights. And he is using a typical RPG application written in seconds to actually control through the internet in a secure way an IoT device. And it is as simple as drawing boxes and clicking things. Now, not everyone is going to want disco lights. I appreciate that, but we are all being asked to integrate Internet of Things sensors into our workload. So maybe that's a box counter, maybe it's an RFID scanner, maybe it's a temperature or humidity sensor. We're all being asked to integrate those things into our IBMI workloads. And Mike has shown you a way of doing that, not only safely, but really quickly and in a way that's just totally easy to understand. And if you tried to write that in RPG, of course you could do it, but it would be thousands of lines of code.
So I want to just ask Mike, as you guys have been, you and Steve actually, so as you guys have been talking about Node-RED, you know, in your user group meetings, talking about it with universities, what are people saying out there?
About Node-RED.
Yeah, and this,
Well,
this
you've got
magical
to.
tool.
This is new. The paint is wet on it. We've been running. How long? When we did the kickoff, was it August the 20th when we announced launch, and was it September when you and I went down to teach the lecturers at University of Wolverhampton, and then about 7 days later we opened it to the students. I can only say we're getting a lot of compliments on just Node-RED, but also on the way we've constructed it, the education documentation which goes with it, which is really quite comprehensive, the path that we've taken with it, and they love it. This is not dry, university stuff and let's go to Google and we'll build a dissertation. This is fun. This is playing. This is them. So much so. I mean, we've had them go off piste already. I know that wasn't in the lesson plan, but they went off. They went to the community, downloaded a node that they thought would be really cool for X, downloaded it and started incorporating it into Node-RED. They've gone a different direction. I can only laud them for that. They got it. They've got it. They figure it out. Now they're determined to make it better than anybody else's Node-RED.
Nice.
So I think it's worth mentioning at this point what it is that we're doing with this particular university. So Mike's created this education. We've talked about how magical this is, but we needed to actually engage with some students, and this is where Mike has excelled, because from August in one demonstration, another day of teaching, this is now being taught as part of a master's IT degree in the University of Wolverhampton. So this is one module in their master's degree, not just on the Node-RED, but why Node-RED, and then wonderfully, why IBMI and why Power. So that's something I'd like to come back to in a moment or two, Mike, but I just want to make sure people realize this is now normal education being delivered in a university.
That's true. That's true. That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
So then how about, okay, so that's the kids like it. Everybody younger is liking it. But what about diehard, RPG folks like yourself? What are they saying? Have they dived into checking this out, working with it, seeing the benefits of it?
We're on our early stage of that, and we just had a conference in Wolverhampton, an IUG conference, very, very well attended. We had to close registration. The hotel wasn't really big enough, but lower numbers than you get in the States. But at that, a number of the members were watching all of this education, seeing, yes, they can use it, we'll organize it for them, and asking very canny questions, like you've been asking. Where is it running? And if I did that, could I? Yes. Could I read that and then decide on the contents of my database whether that door opens or not? Yes. Yes. So these can be done. They get more complex as you go along. I'm going to show you what the end game of this is, because they've got to learn all these things. I'm showing temperature gauges stuff at the moment, but they come to this in the end. This is a huge flow controlling a brewery. And I'm just going to show you this because I think it's worth you seeing. This is all running on IBMI, right? So I'm going to make the brewery go now. And what the students have got to figure out, because I give them this, they don't design this and build it. They've got to figure out how to make this brewery work. And we're not producing any cases now because this has got to be within 80 and 88 degrees. So we'll have to put that temperature up a bit. And they soon start to realize that playing with this slidey bar is hiding to nothing, really. You'll be at it all day trying to balance. If it goes too hot, it won't produce any more cases. So, but they've got to programmatically in here figure out where I'm getting the data from, how I'm controlling it, where the slidey bar fits in, and programmatically say, you know what, there's a direct correlation between the production that we require and getting these cases out. And in one of these boxes, actually in 4 of them, as they'll find out, there are some changes that they'll make to carry data through the database, and that brewery will continue to pump out beer forever and ever, no matter how much production they increase it by. Then they get certificated. Yeah, this is all on I. Even the communication layer between Wolverhampton, us, some devices we've got out in the web, or that MQTT broker is running on an IBMI. So it never goes out the network. Well, it does because we want it to, but it's all inside. We've got our arms wrapped around it. Steve has got mega control around the IUG power server that this is on. Yet all of this is running on it. It's not had to talk to a Mac or talk to a Raspberry Pi. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, what you're seeing is for the benefit of the tape, it's basically an interactive control board. So it looks like a dashboard where we're used to getting alerts in there, but it's got inputs and outputs and controls, and it's getting real-time data that communicates with an IBMI. And so this might be what one would try and build inside a typical factory where you've integrated your loading with automatic robots to go and pick things up as Amazon do. And you would then allow through the Internet of Things communications that all of these new workloads have, these new automated robotic devices, picking devices, scanning devices, all of those things, and control them from your eye. And if you can write a brewery simulator like this or control one, then you could write a control deck that is truly graphical and interactive and supports all the latest Internet of Things for your business. And this is where the kids are having fun. And perhaps, Mike, you might want to say why you chose a brewery as your simulator.
Oh, I think we all know the answer to that question.
Yes. My son had just left university. He said, "No question, Dad. It's going to be a brewery." So beer counts. So there.
And so the questions that I'm hearing, at these events when Mike presents this, and they come to me afterwards and they say, okay, well, first of all, can this thing, I don't suppose it can, but could it run my existing RPG or COBOL code? So Mike, using this new GUI, you just drag and drop it. Can you run traditional programs?
Well, yes, the answer is absolutely yes, but I wouldn't try to incorporate Node-RED into any of the RPG code that you've got at the moment, even though at a push you could probably fire off nodes, fire off flows. But the other way around, absolutely. If in the middle of a flow I decide I need to create a new library, a new table in that library, and I need to journal it, then I just do it from Node-RED. And it creates it on the IBMI, then I can populate it, then read it. And whether that, if you imagine the code that we've got out there, you might have a fantastic currency conversion that works for your business superbly, and it controls certain countries. But if you put one currency in at one end, you get the correct number out the other end. Fine. Fire that off from Node-RED, get the answer back, and carry on. It's quite integratable like that.
And I think that's what they were talking about, business process they've got. So let's say it's currency control as you've got there, where you can look backwards and forwards in time and get the official business answer as to what it was for them at that point. Or maybe more basic, I've got this stock allocation routine that I just call it with a couple of parameters. Can I still do that like I would within a normal
Absolutely.
RPG applicant. So
Yeah.
that was the first yes. When people realized you can reuse the existing business logic you've got, regardless of whether it's Node or not, and you don't have to encapsulate it in any web type process to make it work as a normal API. You can just call code. And not that that's not a good idea to make your programs available as an API, but that puts some people off. The second thing they kept saying is, yes, I know it's open source, but how much does it really cost me to get the IBM I connectors? There's bound to be a cost to buy something, because there's always an IBM cost for something. So, Mike,
Maybe.
all of these extra IBM specific, IBM I specific, you've got to have this to make it work. How much do they cost?
I don't know really what you mean, because there isn't one. There aren't any.
So there's a zero cost for all of those things.
Yeah, there's
As much
nothing
as
I
you know today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
you need an operating system. You need IBM I. Yeah, you've paid for those. You've got those. Yeah.
So would a customer who is looking to modernize maybe a very large application, that's out, that they feel is legacy or proven, it's a proven application, but they need to modernize bits and pieces of it, would they use a tool like Node-RED to help with that modernization effort?
Absolutely. This was brought out by one of the Tim Rowe. He said
Oh
this
yeah.
is a modernization tool. And I said, well, I guess you would look at it that way. Imagine you've got a perfectly good ERP. It does what you need. And here's an absolute true, as I just demonstrated this to a good customer of mine. He immediately said, whoa, could I then? And what they wanted to do is they've got people clocking in the morning. They need to know as soon as possible whether the right quotient of people are in. So, and then if necessary, they'll deploy people from other areas in order to make sure production stuff, but they don't get that until lunchtime. So, well, could we just put it on the clocking in machine and it will send each time somebody's clocked in? The following day, I took him a kind of pseudo operating version of that and how that would operate. So that's modernizing. So he would then know by 9:15 everything about the population in the factory. And then on the other end of it, he says, getting all email all sorted, that's all complex. Well, no, just when it gets to that point, read the database. As soon as you've got it, read another database that says where his address is, his email address is, and then bang the email straight out to them, from Node-RED. They've not had to modify any of the existing code. They've used the data and they've enhanced and given some information, but they've not had to change the code.
Interesting. And I thought I heard APIs. So is it REST APIs that are a part of this product, or help me understand that piece?
No, it is literally a browser. So
Okay.
it is broadcasting on the port that we've said. If you take any browser to that port, it will just open.
Okay.
This is just a website, really.
Can I add to that though? Because I understand where you're coming from, knowing you a little better, Peg, in your day job. If you wanted to consume an API that was either running on I or anywhere else that was done in that sort of web encapsulation, that modern way, yes, there's a node for that. So you just grab the I'm going to consume a web API node, and maybe you're going to the weather channel to get the latest stuff to do with the weather where you are, or maybe you're going to a currency exchange site, or maybe you're booking in an EDI delivery.
Yeah.
There is a node for those sorts of web API consumptions.
Yeah.
But that's not a prerequisite of making Node-RED work itself. It's just another thing that Node does.
Right. Because I just think about just the complexity of REST APIs today and how it's another one of those, I don't know, scary things, People are like, well, you know what, I got to start writing REST APIs now, and I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And having it kind of integrated in this Node-RED, it's just another opportunity to embrace the latest technology, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, and it's the right way to talk to workloads that aren't necessarily on your system. So whether that's you using one of our kind sponsors products to make one of those REST API products available, Other products are available, but some people would say they're not as good as this particular sponsor. Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor. I was waiting for you to say something, Peg. But the point being that whatever you need Node to do, send a text message, fine. Send a tweet, fine. Send a consumer an API, fine. Update a DB2 table, fine. There are tens of thousands of nodes where someone has actually worked out how to do that, and you just drag and drop them into this flowchart.
Crazy.
You heard of
Crazy.
ChatGPT?
Yeah. Yeah.
There
Mike's
you go.
got his
This
screen up again, folks. So
I'm going to say, who is the CEO of IBM? It's not that fast, ChatGPT sometimes. Hang on.
the question.
There you go.
Oh, there it
As
is.
of September 21, Arvind Krishna.
So if you want to integrate your IBMI applications through Node-RED into ChatGPT, there's a way of doing it. How long does that take, Mike, to write a node like that, a flow?
To write the flow, or 10 minutes, to actually get the piece of information without a raft of other information coming through. Once I figured out where in this voluminous thing that the API that ChatGPT sends back to you, then it was simple. So I got confused there for a little while, I got to say, and we'll be delivering this on What's Next very shortly.
Oh, wow.
So something else you can use Node for is just that middleware. And this is the way sort of Mike sold me. The more I looked at it, I realized that actually what Node is an intelligent way of linking workloads. It's like a clever workflow manager that doesn't cost anything. So an MQ on steroids without actually costing you anything at all for not just linking data now, but linking applications and business logic.
It does so much of that heavy lifting that I know Die Hard would use 3 nodes, the middle one being a function node, and put 400 lines of code in there. That would work as well. If you've got a piece of code you really know works well, bang it in a function box and it will work.
So one of the other questions I heard asked of you, Mike, at the event is whether this is scalable and reliable. Is Node-RED ready for prime time, I guess? Does it fall over?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, good question. One student managed to damage it from firing up because he went off piste and he was perfectly okay, then got scared that I'd see what he's done. So tried to back out of it. And he asked Mr. Google, how do I take this node out? And Mr. Google was wrong. Right. So we got into a little bit. It took 5 minutes to refresh it and get him up running again. But how can I say, is this ready for prime time? I've moved from another business park around about 18 months ago. And on that business park, in the canteen one time, I was just chatting with one of the other guys on the business park and mentioned what I was doing, playing with this thing called Node-RED. And he said, oh yeah, we use that all the time. No IBMI, Windows type outfit, I think they were. He said, we use it for everything. So I'm actually back in contact with him at the moment because we're trying to take that a little bit further. But he said, yeah, I remember during the pandemic, they had a big growth spurt because these temperature readers, the guns, those connecting them directly into the systems and deciding whether to open that door or not open that door, depending on the temperature of this chap or gal that was outside. So yeah, about 7 or 8 months ago, he sold his business for £15 million. So I think that's prime time.
That sounds great to me. And this guy who managed to break his individual part, so did he manage to take out the entire IBMI system by going off piste? Did he knock out the other users?
Yeah, this is the big thing. No, of course not. Of course not. He just damaged he couldn't open Node-RED to go into his next lesson. So 10 minutes later, he was back on stream. But of course, no. He's encapsulated. He's being served up to his port, doing his job. All the other students just carried on.
Yeah, that's why you run it on I.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, I want to keep an eye on the time, gentlemen. We are coming up on the hour here. I guess I want to just throw it back to Steve if you have any additional questions for Mike. on this exciting topic.
Well, I mean, just one really, I think, Mike, that I want to get to. I have got a load of other questions, but I am
I
most of the
know.
time. But what next? I mean, what would you
Mhm.
like to do with this node now, and specifically with the universities and the students? What would you like to see happening next? Now you have created this body of work and training.
Okay. What's very evident is they're consuming it really quite quickly. They've got to fit it in with their other university work, and this is a project that they're running about 20 to 30 hours worth, depending on their skills, how concentrated they can be. So there are a few things. First of all, the university, as Wolverhampton, turned around and said, "Yeah, well, next year, how about we'll have 150 students?" So clearly, we're working on. We're going to use Ansible actually again, running on IBMI, open source, to actually automate and scale up the enrollment, so that we set up their environment, we give them the tables, nice fresh tables to work from, what their profile is, all of that, so that we can manage it. There's a lot of control systems on one of the power servers, so that I can look at what they're doing, stop their systems, restart their systems, anything like that. And we're tracking to try and help them. If we see they're struggling, we can jump in and just tell them, "Hang on, you've got that wrong." So there's that. There are 2 new modules to come out, and it's really come from the students and from the lecturers. One on AI and one on a little bit more advanced SQL. And there's also the modules which we've not bored them with. We've not had them on board the open source onto the IBM and launch Node-RED and develop the environment. But of course, some of the members will want that. So those are ready to roll. So the members will do it on their own system. They'll want that onboarding type software. And really, we've already started some dialogue with colleges and universities outside who seem to be interested. We want to make sure that the Wolverhampton project comes to a good conclusion. We've signed off. We go through it. Steve and I can have a look and say, well, we should make that a little harder, or it's difficult to mark this, so can we track it better? And then we'll be ready for putting it out to some of the bigger universities in Birmingham itself, just next door to Wolverhampton, Birmingham University, the Manchester universities. There are a lot to go at.
So if someone was listening to this podcast and was interested in working with you to deliver this sort of training, either internally in their shop or at another academic university in a different country, is this something you'd be open to, Mike?
It is. We do need to realize that whilst there's been a heck of a lot of work in getting to this point, now we're here and running it. It's taking time. There is some, so we have to figure out some contribution really to the team that's going to be making this work in the background. But it's absolutely where we need to be. And if a small percentage of those students turn around and find some gainful employment within the IBMI community, that's job done. It is job done.
So it has to be worth pointing out that Mike has deployed this training in an open source way, not just using open source programming, but he has gifted his time. And so it would be nice if he could find a way through some sort of support revenue in the future to actually pay for his sandwiches. But it's nice that you're still giving stuff away, Mike, and I really credit you for it.
It is.
Yeah,
Hurry, hurry.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I can't wait to hear about, as this project tracks into the next phase, we'll have to have you back on the show to talk about that. Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be good.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I'll definitely keep you updated.
Okay, wonderful. And then Mike, I always like to give our guests an opportunity just to get behind the mic and no pun intended. And just if there's something that you wanted to share that we didn't have a chance to talk about, things that you want to communicate, here's an opportunity for you to share the mic or to share that information.
It is. This is. I have had help on this. We have a chap within our user group called Andy Ewens. He is he is the open source guru, very much our go-to guy on all things like this. And he's not only helped me get over that hurdle, he's helped me with training, and he's now volunteered his help to be the backstop, so that when Essist can't deal with an issue that's coming through from the students, because largely that's been down as little documentation issues and what have you, then he'll support Essist in trying to make sure that that works. So that has been great, and he deserves, you know, a real accolade for that. His company's former serve, and you know, I will not look back and actually add up everything that we've done on this, because I think it's just really scary. And if I liken it to a classic car, you know, you get a classic car, you spend hours and hours and hours and lots of money doing it up, and then find it's actually not worth as much as you've spent on it, really. But it's a thing of beauty in the end, and nothing will take that away. So that's where we are at the moment, that it's no good adding up that cost, because we're here and we desperately wanted to get here, and we're here now. So yeah.
And I think I'd like to echo that. You know, Mike's brief originally came from the fact that we didn't feel that IBM was doing as much as they could, or effectively as they could, to educate the next generation. And what we needed was a fresh new approach. And Mike found that and delivered it. And we've been amazed how quickly that we got traction. Having spent a decade trying to find other ways of inspiring young people to work on the platform, Mike came up with this idea, and in weeks inspired people, and we're coming out of the other side of it now with real skills that they could use in an IBM shop tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I mean, I take my hat off literally to you, Mike, and I'd like to point out to everyone that Mike is an IBM champion, and Andy Ewan's a former serve, another IBM champion. And these are why these people are champions, because they give so much of their time to actually make sure that not just their business is thriving, but the IBMI community is thriving. So, you know, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you
I
both.
appreciate
Amen.
that. Yeah.
Very well
But I
said.
am enjoying it. I am enjoying it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you both so much for being on the show with me today. Thank you so much for the, I don't know, YouTube is of this show. It's my first like video show. Maybe there will be more in the future, folks. I don't know. We'll see.
Definitely.
So, all right. So let us move on to our one incredible thing this week. So, Mike, you go first. What is your one incredible thing?
Well, this is, it comes in, just bear with me on this a little. As part of a belated birthday present, I'm being taken, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm being taken to see Concorde. Do you know what Concorde is? The supersonic jet? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
of course.
Okay. And we have one at Manchester. Of course, they're all grounded now.
Yeah.
And various places have got one. We've got one of the British Airways aircraft. But there's something quite special about it, because when an aircraft is commissioned and ready for flight, it's given a designation number. You've seen it on the side of aircraft, you know, all these. And with the Concorde, they started off as BOAA, BOAB for the second, BOAC, BOAD, yeah. And BOAC finds itself as the pride of the fleet for no other reason than BOAC is British Airways' old name, British Overseas Airways Corporation. That's the one that's at Manchester. But then to double underline it, I am extremely fortunate to have flown Concorde. So I flew Concorde on the route between New York and London.
Wow.
And this is the actual aircraft that I flew on. So,
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So I'm going to go and see Concorde. Not only that, but to go and see you grow in flight because it got so hot and they shrink. And the last captain put his hat in part of the equipment in the cockpit, and as it shrunk, you can't get the hat out now. So and it'll never come out unless you get up to that temperature again. So wow. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. That's my one special thing, really.
Yeah. Wow. You've been on a Concorde. That's because they've been grounded for a long time now, haven't they?
Yes.
Yes. What year was that you actually took that flight?
Gosh, I can't remember.
That's crazy.
I can't remember which year it was now.
Wow. Yeah. All right. That is one incredible thing.
For what it's worth, ladies and gentlemen, Concorde was introduced in 1976 and it was retired in 2003. Now, neither Mike nor Peg look old enough to have been around in those periods of time. And I say that for anyone who's not watching the video stream. Uh,
All right. All right. Thank you, Mike, for your one incredible thing, the Concorde. All right, Steve, my friend, what is your one incredible thing this week?
it's the number 42. Shall I stop there? Okay, so the
No,
people who already
keep
know
going.
me and know about the number 42, then they'll know about Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and how the answer to everything, life, the universe, and everything is actually 42. Now, why is that relevant this time? Because some years after the tragic and early death of Douglas Adams, my hero, a book called 42 has been released. And 42 is the wild and improbable ideas of Douglas Adams. And what they've done, bless him, Douglas, after he died, his family agreed that he could have his office and his computers fully sort of ransacked and searched. And inside that book are all the random scribblings and notes that never quite made it to one of his books or one of his lectures. So if you love Douglas Adams in any way, shape, or form, if you liked The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if you're into the Holistic Detective Agency or any of his lectures, this is the book for you. So the book is called 42, The Wildly Improbable Ideas of Douglas Adams, and you can get it from Amazon. Or if you want to make sure that the family get a bit more money, you can go to a website called Unbound, Unbound, unbound.com. And they're the people who actually put the book together. And so you can cut the Amazon percentage out. It is fantastic. I got this for my birthday, which was yesterday. Thank you all for the cake.
Oh, happy
Um,
birthday. Oh my
Thank you very
gosh.
much. Yep, finally got to 25. Would you believe it?
Yes.
In hexadecimal. And
Plus VAT.
plus V8. Yes, actually, I do express my age in hex, and it doesn't start with a 2. So I can't recommend it highly enough if you like things that are
I want
quirky
one.
and unusual. Yeah, please, please, please do.
Awesome. That is wonderful. I like your one incredible thing. You usually do a podcast or something like that. So this is fun. I like it. Thank
Just for
you.
you, I thought I would go somewhere else. So next
It
time
would
I'll be back to my normal podcasts.
it will make a nice Christmas gift.
Oh,
Mhm.
it's fantastic, and it's
Yeah.
just heavy enough that if you actually need to discipline a new member of staff, you can just get a good swing in there with it.
Throw it at your husband or wife, your kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I throw it at my husband all the time. Actually, more often I throw it at Mike. He's my work husband. Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right. Well, thank you both. Those are really nice one incredible things. Well, my one incredible thing this week is we picked up the most perfect Christmas tree this year. It's, I'm not kidding you. It's like the one behind me. It's nice. It's perfect from the top to the bottom. It's thin. It's not, I mean, usually our trees are big and round and fat, but it's not. It's like tall and thin and lovely, and every needle on it is perfect. So that is my one incredible thing today, is our perfect brand new Christmas tree.
Well, I think you need to share a tip on how you managed to get such a perfect tree.
Well, we went to the Boy Scout lot here in town, just down the street. You know, the Boy Scouts, they get the best trees, I swear. You know, my husband was a Boy Scout growing up, sold trees in the Christmas time, and they funded their trips all around the world. So we try to, support the Boy Scouts the best we can. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's a
so
double bonus. So it's a
Great.
perfect tree and
Yeah.
it's a good cause to boot.
yes, yes. They don't Matt and his Boy Scout troop in Des Moines, they had the only Christmas tree lot in town. And so the Boy Scouts made a lot of money, and they had a very progressive troop leader. And back, in the early 1970s, he started taking the kids out across the world, to South Africa, to Germany, to, the British Virgin Islands, to Greece, to Singapore, you name it, they did it. Yeah. So we like to support the Boy Scouts. I don't know if they're doing those kinds of trips anymore, but you know, it's kind of fun to think about.
Well, that is a special one, incredible thing. Yeah, support your local Boy Scout movement,
And
and
Girl
let's
Scouts.
enable, and Girl Scouts too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So I don't know how it is in the US, but over here now, both the traditional girls and Boy Scouts, they're actually both unisex. You can both go to either. You go to the one you want.
mm, yeah, I think that it is kind of like that too. I don't know. My girls are older now, so I don't know. I don't know what they're up to, those groups, but
Phenomenal.
yeah, yeah. So it's very wonderful. So, well, thank you both very much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mike, thank you. And Steve, thank you so much for all that you're doing to help create open source opportunities on the IBMI, bringing education to the masses, and just helping to continue to support this wonderful platform that we're on. So thank you so much for being here today.
Great to be here, and thank you very much for giving us the airtime.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, it's always great to have you on as my co-host. I absolutely love it. Can't wait till the next time.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me back. And again, Mike, well done for the work you've been doing. A true IBM champion, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the call.